That's Nick.
And that's Joseph, and today we're here to talk about The Wretched, which will be available on digital on demand, courtesy of IC Midnight on May 1st, 2020, also known as May Day. It premiered at the 2019 Fantasia International Film Festival. It is the sophomore film by the Pierce brothers, Brett and Drew. Their first film was Deadheads, a zombie cult classic, I guess, from 2011. I have not seen that.
You have not seen
No.
it? Okay. The Wretched is about a group of witches who have taken over a small port town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A marina, a local marina town. Yeah.
The film stars
John Paul Howard is Ben,
Ben, a 17-year-old
with a broken limb.
with a broken arm, who has traveled to this marina town to visit his dad.
Well, actually, to work for his father for the summer.
Yeah, his parents are separated.
Yeah.
But the film starts with a scene 35 years prior of a young woman going to a house to babysit. She hears some noises, goes into the basement, and some sort of demon-like creature attacks her.
A demon got your baby.
And then flash forward 35 days, or 35 years,
Yeah.
minus 5 days.
Yeah.
Because it says 5 days prior. Yeah, so Ben makes his way to the town. He gets a job
Working for his father.
working for his father at the marina, where there's a coworker who's has a crush on him.
Mallory, played by Piper Curda.
Okay. What happens next? I'm having a hard time with the plot because I feel like the story was kind of basic, but
He begins, he goes to a party and he's harassed by some local teen bullies who call him Turtle Dick. And then he's also upset that his father is dating a new person already. Meanwhile, some new neighbors of his father's begin to act strangely, and the audience...
starting with the neighbor lady brings home a deer.
She hits a deer with a car, and that deer is infected with the witch who crawls out of the deer's corpse and then...
Infects her.
And takes over the mother. And then these particular witches bewitch the men by making them forget about things, including their children, who they scuttle off to the woods and hide in tree stumps, presumably to feed off of them.
So one day Ben is at home and the neighbor kid is in the attic.
Yeah, a young boy.
Acting strange, saying he's afraid of his mother, when someone knocks on the door and it's the mother saying like, I want my kid back. He says he's not here. The witch threatens him, or the neighbor lady threatens him. But then the neighbor dad also comes over, and when the boy hears his dad's voice, runs outside. So that's the first glimpse for him that there is something wrong with the neighbors. Then what happens?
Then he tells his little
He tells his
girl crush Mallory what's going on. Mallory thinks it's kind of funny, but she likes Ben, and so she goes and slips a note under the witch's door that says, "We know what's in your basement," and then she also becomes a target of the witchery.
So Ben goes to a party, gets grounded, and on the night he's grounded, he goes to the neighbor's house, like sneaks in, goes in the basement, sees what he thinks is evidence that she's a witch. And he sees that his work friend, her sister, is also one of the targeted kids. So he runs to go tell her and like presumably try to save the girl. In doing so, he witnesses the girl like in one of the tree stumps.
Yeah, he finds the girl in the tree stump.
He's startled, falls backwards, hits his head. When he regains consciousness, he returns home and finds the police talking to his dad.
Because he had broken into the neighbor's basement.
House.
Yeah.
The neighbors decide not to press charges. However, while the police are still at the house, Ben, the 17-year-old, goes into the kitchen to talk, or he's talking to his dad's girlfriend, and then he realizes she's also a witch, and he attacks her. So he gets arrested, and while he's being transported to jail,
it's made clear that the policeman has been possessed by the witch.
He's under the spell of the witches, and he gets out of the car, shoots his canine, then kills himself.
For reasons that aren't quite clear.
So Ben runs off to the woods, finds the tree, finds the
In fact, I want to come back to that when you're done with the plot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Finds the neighbor boy in the tree there's a witch down there. He attacks the witch. While he's down there, he has flashbacks and realizes that he was under the spell of a witch, starting when he was on that train headed.
Since jump. Mm-hmm.
From the jump, he was under the spell because he was actually traveling with his little brother,
mm-hmm.
but was made to forget about him. So that neighbor boy is actually Ben's brother.
Which the montage flashback makes inordinately clear.
Right. So he attacks the witch. He's able to escape. His dad shows up, saves him. And then fast forward to like the next day, the mom comes to pick them up and they go on a drive. And that's the end. However, Ben finds a flower in his hair. And then the final scene is his work like girlfriend looking off into the distance. And the presumption is she is also a witch and she put a spell on him.
Because the flower in his hair is an artificial flower.
And one of the plot points is that whenever the witch is around,
flowers die. Which is about as corny as that M. Night Shyamalan movie Devil, when a character says something like, whenever the devil's around, toast falls jam side down.
I forgot about that.
I didn't, because it's terrible.
So when I read the synopsis, or if you just told me this movie is like a horror film about a town filled with witches, I'm into it.
Yeah, get your witch fix.
Yeah, but this film,
it feels very much like it's PG-13. Feels like when Disney was making YA dark theme movies in the 70s, like Watcher in the Woods or Return to Witch Mountain, except that there's no real tone or ambiance, or I argue even it feels like the terrestrial version of something like The Forgotten. Remember that Julianne Moore movie from 2004? Well,
I think
Elfrey Woodard gets jetted up into space by aliens. Mm-hmm.
I think it felt like if like Twilight were made for like that old like WB network, like
double.
Yeah, or like UPN. I think the film was well done. Like it's well constructed. The visuals are great. It looks clean. So the filmmakers are talented at like filming a movie.
Well, they also wrote it, which I think might be where they're.
But there is no tone. It's not funny. It's not dark. There's no action, no horror. There's really no gore.
But the witch special effects, while there is no tone or even creepiness to this, it looks really good.
It looks really good.
And so I think you should shout out Stephen Imhoff for the special effects technician who worked on many things, including Alien Covenant, and the visual effects supervisor, John Brennick, who worked on the last Terminator and Avengers film and Thor Ragnarok. Like, the visual effects are impressive. It's just that there's nothing to back them up. The characters are all, dare I say, forgettable. And there's so much time spent on these cliches of this father and son that are fragmented because of a divorce, and they don't bother to give them any kind of real character markers. So you might as well have scrapped most of that and given us something about some exposition on the witches, because there's nothing I really understand.
I would have preferred understanding more about the lore of the witches. Why are they so all of these men in this town appear to be under the spell of the witches, but for what purpose? Like, I don't understand what they're doing except feeding on these little children, maybe.
And you had brought up a good fact.
I did.
It had played like the inverse of the Stepford Wives, and
sure.
It does. Like, usually these kind of narratives, we see a young woman is the protagonist, and I do appreciate the gender switch to a young male, except that he's just. I'd never buy his level of investments, because he's the one that goes over to the neighbor's house demanding.
There's a scene where, because he works in the marina, like in the water, doing something, and he says the young neighbor boy had a lesson with him and missed his appointment. So this kid, who presumably is making minimum wage, decides to go to the neighbor's house to say, hey, where's your son? He missed his appointment. And then the dad says, I don't have a son. So that's the first like real glimpse that perhaps the dad is under the spell of his witch wife. And then Ben like puts his foot in the door, like demanding to know. It just seems like, why is he so invested? Why does he care? I would have been freaked out and said, I need to go back home to my mama. Like,
but you had said it's kind of like the inverse of the Stepford Wives, which there's a lot of subtext there that they could have used, playing with gender stereotypes, that is completely missed. Also, you had brought up, I hadn't thought of it upon watching it, the fact that Ben has a broken arm seems really strange.
I'm convinced that actor had a broken arm during filming and they just went with it.
It is brought up a couple times though, and so feel that it probably was in the script, but I think it was their sneaky way of trying to emasculate him. Like he's a young, robust male, but he has a clipped wing. So
I don't think this film's worth that deep of an analysis. I think it's a nice effort, and I would be interested. I think the people who made this film would be great people to hire to direct a film that someone else wrote.
Yeah,
and that's it. But you know, if it's free on streaming and you're like working from home and need something in the background, I guess I would give this film 2 out of 5 stars.
I think 2 out of 5 is fair. It was filmed by Conor Murphy, who did Mickey and the Bear, which we reviewed a couple months ago.
I don't remember.
I would say give most
this
other...
review is long, but go ahead.
I would say give most other witch movies a try, except like...
Go ahead.
Last weekend there was a movie called Witches in the Woods made available, which is very, very derivative. Not that. But this reminded me of something like William Friedkin's forgotten film, The Guardian from 1990, which I would say give that a chance again. Or even special effects wise, The Hallows, which was an Irish film from a couple years ago, is like great kind of Pumpkinhead-like, even Harryhausen type of like creature feature effects that are great. And The Witch, her final approximation reminded me a little bit of Agra from Dark Crystal.
Oh, great. I was going to say that season 6, episode 23 of The Cosby Show, called Off to See the Wretched, is about Vanessa sneaking off to see a band called The Wretched. I would recommend watching that.
Oh boy. Oh, anyway. Yeah, I was going to say it also reminded me of that kind of gluten-free Wicker Man movie starring Dan Stevens, The Apostle.
Okay.
Or Apostle, but anyway.
Is that all?
Yeah, that's it.
Bye.
Bye.